Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Betfred Boxing Show with me, your host, Rob Tebbutt. As always, let's remind everybody to please like, comment and subscribe. Turn your notifications on for more boxing content. Now that's out of the way, I'm joined by the usual twosome this week of Mr. Andy Clarke and Mr. Barry Jones as we look ahead to a bumper weekend of boxing this weekend. But before we do that, guys, how are we doing? Well?
Yeah, good. I was at a good show yesterday, actually. Sunday show, top tier. Yeah. And shall I just move this a bit closer?
No, I'm sure the technicians would have told us if it was, but I'm seeing it was a control freak. So let's go.
Yeah.
I don't have to tell you guys by now.
Some good fights, really good fights. A really good fight between Toomey Phillips and Ross Driscoll, 10-rounder. That was a great fight. And
good win for Driscoll, that wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. He boxed really well. It was a good fight. He boxed really well. And we saw Muxanga, who we saw at the World Championships, Thiago Muxanga. And he got a win against a senior Byfield. Hard fought, well-earned win. But again, in the third pro fight to do 10 rounds against somebody like that, it's going to be an interesting one watching him. And Lily Winch came back too, and that was great because she is good. She is really good, and she's early in her pro career, but she'd been out for a while with a hand injury, which I know had been really frustrating. I think the last time she boxed was on the Wardley Hooney undercard.
What weight was she this time?
Lightweight, but she's going to be super featherweight. Yeah, she's going to come down to super featherweight. And she was in with Lindsay Buczynski, who's a good fighter. So that was a real good 8-rounder. So, yeah, with our good mate Alex Steedman, I was with Steedo all afternoon. It
used to be the three of us, didn't it? No, it used to be me and Alex, and you came in, and then you elbowed me out.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened.
Yeah, which is ludicrous, really, because what the fuck do you know? No offence.
Yeah, I mean,
people can understand you, but apart from that, no.
Have I explained how I did it?
I don't want to know your secrets.
No, I just went behind the scenes and badmouthed you.
Behind the scenes? Yeah. That's not like boxing media.
No, that's all I did. That's all just good old-fashioned traditional stuff.
I tell you what, the Muxanga, I saw him in the Commonwealth Games. I remember telling a manager, I don't want to say who it was, but they were talking about, have you seen any guys? I went, he's a guy to grab him. He's
pro style.
Yeah. Remember seeing some like call him like the Black Panther or something like that. They call him superheroes and stuff. Like, dress him all up like that, and he's vicious. Yeah, strong, and he.
We had this conversation a few times, didn't we? Because I had the same thoughts about him when he boxed in Paris. He came up, he lost to Marco Verde, who ended up going on to win the silver medal, didn't he, in Paris? And he boxed really well. We had lots of conversations about him in Dubai when he was over in Dubai in the World Championships before Christmas. I really want him to use his jab. He's got a lovely jab. I appreciate he's a pressure fighter and he likes to let go of big shots, but you've got to work your way in with the jab. And I feel like Senior Byfield kind of showed him the value of that last night, which was Saturday night, which was good. Last night, wasn't it?
He's good as Senior Byfield. Like I remember first covering him probably about 10 years or so ago and having a chat with him on the phone, and you kind of warm to him. He's a character. He's got something about him. He really believes in himself, and you see the shape that he's still in. He's in his mid-30s now, and that was a really useful fight for Muxanga. I felt like when he got a bit tired towards the end and he was slightly more economical with what he was doing, he was actually better.
He picked his punches a bit more rather than just steaming forward.
I have two memories of a Senior Byfield. The first one's when he beat the undefeated Sam McNess.
The riot. The riot.
All these old West Ham and
Millwall,
50s all going down with all the guys from Reading, which is Byfield's guys. That was mad.
He jumped up on the ring ropes, didn't he? And did the iron sign to the West Ham fans, and then it all went mental.
But then he boxed in Dubai, and I was doing the commentary with some guy who I'd never met before, and he lost against, I think it was a Cuban. Anyway, he lost clearly, but it all kicked off. It was all this and that kicked off, and they started. I think him and his, I don't know if it's the same trainer he got now, but I think his trainer was chopping off. I gotta be honest, and it all kicked off properly, and they all fight in the ring, and then the ring buckle snapped, and then the promoter landed right in front of me like that. Boom, got knocked back out right in front of me. So I just got up, shook the guy who was with me. I said, "I'll see you later, mate." And I walked out. I just thought, once the pro that gets knocked out in front of me, that's my cue to leave.
Go,
and I left. I got paid. I didn't do the top of the bill, which was I can't remember who it was now. I can't remember who that was, but it was his fight. That's my two biggest memories. Not him actually fighting.
The fights that happen around.
It's all the stuff around him. Yeah. But he's a character and he's tricky, and so that's a good win. For so in your career, do 10 rounds against a tricky guy like him who can be very negative and sort of close you down. a good win.
Yeah, he shot to kind of, I guess, notoriety a little bit, didn't he, when talking about sparring Javante Davis at the Mayweather gym? Do you remember that? There was like a story about that and him kind of having a big spar with Javante Davis. But we've got a lot to preview this week. But before we do that, we had, the mob on Twitter were not very pleased about us not doing a show last week. Really sorry. Of course, Nick Ball lost his WBA featherweight title the previous Saturday to Brandon Figueroa. So we're just going to very, very quickly recap on that. Barry, of course, you were there that night in Liverpool. First and foremost, what a terrific win for Brandon Figueroa on the road.
Yeah, well, everyone was in agreement, I think, that it was always it was a banana skin.
Yeah.
Figueroa was a good fighter, but you did think after his last couple of performances, he might be a little bit jaded and the energy of Ball might be enough at this stage. But Figueroa was really good, and Ball was what Nick Ball does. He's really good, energetic, and he's clever than what you give him credit for. But he also comes back in straight lines. And someone like Figueroa is always going to react to whatever you do. Going back in straight lines is not always a good thing, and he was just in his face all the time. So, like, as the rounds went on, I think Ball's energy levels, because the way Ball fights, he's small and he gets smaller. That's good, but he's constantly using his big muscles, like his legs are always compressed, which is what he has to do to generate that speed to get close to the target and negate that lack of reach. But with that, it's a lot of energy. So as the rounds go by, unless you're dictating the pace, which he wasn't always, you're going to slow quicker. I think he just did, and I didn't see the knockout coming. But it was a great shot, and I thought it was a close fight. I think I had Ball up by 1, but I wouldn't have argued if it was 1 or 2 the other way, and it was a close fight, I think, and every round was close. And that's why one massive car for Ball, which looked ridiculous, and I think it was. But if every round's really close, we've had this discussion a million times before, you can just favour one guy in every round, theoretically. But what a great win. I mean, Figueroa was fighting for his career. Ball for his title, but Ball could come back. He's still a good fighter. You lose a fight like that, a fight that you were in the fight, you could have won it. You obviously on the scorecards he would have lost, but not by a million miles. And he comes back again. He got caught with a good shot. That's it. When he was fatigued and tired and got up off it, to be fair, and got put down again. Figueroa fighting for his career, I thought, and he was brilliant. And now he's in a division now where they have no real number one. We all think maybe Bruce Canada might be that, but I mean
Rafael Espinosa,
yeah, the old giants there. But I mean, either way, there's some real attractive fights from there. Steve Fulton, a trilogy. There's loads of options for him. So you've got to be happy. Away from home, it wasn't packed out, but it was a very, very partisan crowd, as we saw after at the end of the fight, of course. And he conducted himself with just absolute professionalism throughout. I thought it was brilliant.
Just before we move on and look ahead to this weekend, let's look ahead for both Brandon Figueroa and Nick Ball. First off, with Brandon Figueroa, Barry mentioned there, featherweight's kind of a lot of good fighters there, but no real kind of he's your number one guy. What fight would you like to see Brandon Figueroa take next?
I feel like Espinosa would be a good fight.
How either of those are featherweights, by the way?
Yeah, exactly. I just think that would be.
Yeah.
I just think that would be a really good watch. But like you say, there isn't any particular standout, but they're all good, and they're all good to watch, and you could do almost anything really, I think.
Would you avoid anyone if you were him?
Andy fights all comers. Andy Clarke avoids no.
I mean, if you didn't have your crazy bravery or your ability.
Yeah, I know. It's across the board. The sheer weight of my cojones. I'm surprised I can walk, but I think at the stage of his career, you want to just go where the biggest fight, the biggest money is, because he's been at this a long time, and it was really good to see like Manny Robles get that kind of away win too, because I remember there was a little bit of a run a couple of years ago where away from home his guys just kept getting stiffed, but he's had some big wins over the last big upset wins over the last year or so, and he's just a really good trainer, isn't he? Really good trainer. So
great in the corner, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Even at the start of the fight, he was. They were all cheering Nick Ball. He was just talking. The Brandford was a seasoned campaigner, but never travelled this far before for a fight, and he was just talking in his ear constantly. And I think that's really clever. That, I mean, simple stuff, but stuff you would forget in the heat of all what's going on, and constantly. Even though he was ahead, it was like, make sure you got to win these rounds. The last 3 rounds, he knew you had to win them. Otherwise, just in case it was too close, he knew it was too close, and he thought, you've got to win these rounds, you've got to win them well.
It was. No, it was really good stuff, because you need that urgency in the corner sometimes, and you need people to tell you exactly what's what and what you've got to do, and then you need to trust the person who's telling you it, which he obviously does, and that's so key, isn't it? It's really obvious thing to say, but in that white heat, those two people need to completely trust each other, and you don't question it. You don't think, well, actually, I think I might be ahead. You just hear what they're saying and you do it, and he did it.
Barry, sorry, Andy. Before we move on, you mentioned there Nick Ball obviously can come again. Where would you like to see him go next?
You have a rest. I think gone are the days now where you'd have like a nice little 8-rounder, 10-rounder to come back. And he's still a world-class fighter. The problem you have nowadays, when someone gets beat, we're sort of right in the end of their career. I mean, I say quite a lot, you should retire, but that's when they're older. They've got miles on the clock, and he hasn't. And he's had a quite, in this era, condensed run.
He's been busy.
He's been really busy, yeah. Which is what they should be. Get that money quick now while you're young and you're fresh. And as long as you're not getting loads of damage, it's fine. I mean, and I think he's been fantastic. And someone criticised the quality of opposition. I can't remember who that was now. It's irrelevant, but it's madness, isn't it? I think it was.
Well, people were talking about he only fights fighters who've come up from super bantamweight or something like that.
I mean, Ray Ford didn't. Ray Ford.
No, I know. But this is what people like. They like to do, don't they? Is just try.
But Ray Vargas is massive. Holes. I mean, Nick and a world-class world champion, of course. Ray Ford as well, brilliant fighter, world champion.
I get it. You see like Ronnie Rios and TJ DeHennick. So they're smaller guys who moved up. But that happens in boxing, right? People move up in weight, particularly around those weight.
But also, they were the easier touches, but still difficult fights. Potential. I mean, DeHennick, I think, was probably a little bit more jaded than Rios, but still. So he had 2 fights where he was a massive favourite. But the people think the Sam Goodman's fight on paper was an easy fight, and it never was. I mean, and we showed that, because we thought Nick Ball looked a bit flat. But I think that's Goodman. He's a good fighter. I think he might never get over the line to be the best, but he's going to give everyone a hard fight, Sam Goodman. He's a good world-class fighter. I mean, just because he's not a world champion, I mean, he had a really hard run of world titles, a really hard run, and Figueroa was just one too far maybe, but he can come back, and Figueroa again, he might beat him on another night. I mean, there's loads of options for him now. I mean, no someone's seen him beat, he might be a more attractive option. I mean, the people are after him because of his title, but then and because of his stature. But then when they realise actually him being short is not a problem for him, then people thought maybe I don't really want to fight him. But no, he's got loads of options. I mean, unless his confidence is massively dented, he can just run straight back in, I think, to a big fight.
Be interesting to see what happens. Fight I do quite like. I'm not sure whether Nick Ball would love it, because it's not a huge fight, but Nathaniel Collins, like that fight.
Yeah, it's a brilliant fight. Nathaniel Collins is massively underrated. I thought he won the European title. And he's a good kid. And he's more than just skillful, he's gutsy.
Yeah, so had to show a lot of grit.
Without being stereotypical, he has a proper Scottish...
Hard Scottish bastard. Yeah, okay. Right, let's move on and talk about this weekend. And we're going to start off in Nottingham. Andy, going to come to you first for the rematch. Leigh Wood versus Josh Warrington 2, about 2 and a bit years, 28 months or so, maths not my strong point, on from their first fight. It's sort of quite a lot of water, not a lot of water under the bridge, but they're obviously in the second half of their careers, both of them now, or not even the second half, of the back end of their careers, arguably. How do you see this weekend playing out?
I think almost anything could happen. I'm really looking forward to it, because it's taken a long time to happen, this rematch, but I don't think it's really lost any of its shine. Not for me anyway. I'm kind of fascinated by these two, because you just look at their careers and they've been so interesting. Because Warrington, COVID was a complete disaster for Warrington, really, wasn't it? And it wasn't great for any of us, but you look at what was happening in his career. He was a champion, then he gave up a belt. They were looking at unifications, and then he gave up the belt. Then he boxed Mauricio Lara, and that went wrong. And then Leigh Wood at that point, who had been completely in the doldrums, then won a Commonwealth title, then won a British title, then lost to Jazza, who's obviously very good in the golden contract, and people wondering where he would go. He then kind of like nipped in and took Josh Warrington's fight, if you like, against Kanju, and won when nobody thought he would. Then he made a defence against Michael Conlon, where people thought he would get outboxed, and it was an epic finish, and he won again. So watching those two paths kind of diverge but run in parallel lines, I've just found really fascinating. And they're both in their mid-30s now. One's 35, one's 37. And that first fight, the way it finished and all the arguments around it, it just means that you can make a case any which way, because Warrington and his supporters could say, well, I was winning the fight. I was winning the fight clearly, and I switched off. And Leigh Wood could say, yeah, but I stopped you in the 7th round. It's hardly a last gasp turnaround, is it?
And I won't go southpaw this time.
Yeah, that's what I can do. I'll switch you off again. I'll just take it more seriously this time. And it's a good fight. It's a really, really good fight. And if they level it up at 1 apiece and it's another good one to watch and a bit of controversy, then why can't they do it again? They're at that stage of their careers now where I think we would all like to see them call it a day soon, because they've been great and they've been really good for the sport. A great example of so many different things between them. You don't want to see them go on too long. And they could be the perfect way for each of them to finish, I think. Not necessarily after this fight, but it could be after this fight.
Barry, it's not a fight that's obviously not for a world title up at super featherweight. Both guys have kind of reigned at lower weight classes at featherweight. But a fight that's well matched, and a fight with also, for two quite respectful guys generally. I mean, Warrington's had his moments over the years. Really don't like each other, these two, either.
No, they don't. I mean, it's not, and that helps. And it helps sell the fight, I think. It's just funny, Chico. This would be Warrington's third biggest. Is the last 3, he had one warmer fight, but his last 3 fights, the warmer fight he had recently, that have not been in Leeds. For such a massive ticket seller, it's crazy, isn't it? Think about it. What was it, Wembley, Nottingham and Nottingham, if I'm correct? I mean, it's mad. Like, he wasn't the away fighter in Wembley, of course, but I mean, the away fighter, it just shows how you're 2 big ticket sellers here, and they have to go to Nottingham because maybe Wood's, I don't know, maybe they see Wood as a more marketable fighter moving forward. I'm not quite sure. But he's the older guy, isn't he, Wood?
Yeah.
37, yeah, he's 37, Josh is 35.
I think it's the perfect fight for both of them, because I think they're not going to be... they thought against Kakachi, where they were both well beaten. One stopped, one was... My point is clear enough. That maybe that world title level is probably beyond them now. You never know with this game, but I think probably beyond them at this stage of their careers. So they got a fight there, which is really good the first time. It's a big money fight, the biggest probably money they can get, without stepping out of their realm now. And it makes sense for them to go. And I mean, if they were going to carry on, the third fight would only be the option, I think. I think that their options where they're going to go, unless they're chucked into a world title fight, which they would take. And they would be slightly competitive because of who they are. But I mean, they're in the stage of their careers where you wouldn't fancy them to beat anyone at that weight. And it's a hiding for nothing. And how much money would you get? Would it be more than what this fight is? I'm not quite sure it would, a world title fight, depending who it's against. I'm not quite sure. So I think it's a good, and stylistically it's a good fight, because like I thought Warrington boxed brilliant, absolutely brilliant. In and out with his feet and punching in bunches, and looked like he had control, and Wood looked like he was struggling. But Leigh Wood did what Leigh Wood does, Leigh Wood things, isn't it, I guess you'd call it, and he caught him with a good shot. But it wasn't just that; the follow up was fantastic. I know Warrington screams that he shouldn't have been stopped, but you can't waddle back to your corner with your back to the referee and expect not to get stopped. There was an argument there that I think the bell rang and they were in the corner, so they thought that it was the end of the round because the corner were trying to get in, and I understand that point of view, but the referee's still talking to you, so until, even though the bell's gone, until the referee releases you, he's in charge, yeah. So, and he wants a response. He didn't get the response he wanted, and I think he has to make a judgment call like that. And on the night I was ringside doing radio, not TV, and I thought it was the right call. And they're never going to think that, but I thought it was the right call. And would he got stopped the next round against Leigh Wood? The way he was unsteady on his legs, probably, but you never know because he is massively tough. But I fancy Warrington again. Actually, I'm not Warrington again. Warrington this time, I should say. I think all he has to do is just not be too greedy. That's all. I think Wood and work the body. I think if anything, Kakachi, who's more of a whippier puncher than Warrington, just showed that I think you whip one across the body with Leigh Wood. It won't be the first time he's been hurt with body shots. That might be a little bit of his Achilles heel. And at this age where you don't see things as clearly, you flurry your top the way Warrington does, and then rather than looping hooker on the back of the head, which he does naturally, I mean, you just whipped onto the body instead. Bam, 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 bam. So you just block his eyes, block his view, whip down across like that, I think. But I thought he was brilliant at Warrington. He was punching and he was moving around the target just enough that Leigh Wood just couldn't really pull the trigger enough. And that's a sign of an aging fighter, where they just know you still got it there, but you from there to your function, it doesn't. The message takes too long to reach your muscles. Just can't. Not quite there. Until it is there. When he caught him, he was brilliant. So I'll keep going with the same point, yeah. So just, please help stop me.
No, but I think like what's so good about it is that they are both now going down the other side of the hill, and there's nothing wrong with that because they're in their mid-30s. That's what happens if you're
great
clean.
Careers, haven't they? Unbelievable
if you're
careers.
clean and you're not on the gear, then that is what happens. That is what happens, and it's good to see. You don't want people to go on too long, but when you see that, you think, good, because that's life, that's physiology, that is what is supposed to happen. If it doesn't happen, and all of a sudden someone's strength and stamina seems to increase as they get older, then you've got to wonder about that. That hasn't happened with these two. As I said, they're really good pros and such a good example of so many things when you look at their careers. Just so much to be proud of, the pair of them. But they want this badly.
And
I think that they are
from the ground up as well, by the way.
Yeah, and I think that they are kind of,
sorry,
you know, in terms of deterioration, if you like, they're in the same position. They're at the same place. So it's, I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah,
both guys who I don't think anybody would have necessarily thought they would get to where they've got to in their careers. I mean, you mentioned that kind of late blossom in Leigh Wood's career. He had that frustrating period of time when he was at the Ingle gym, couldn't really get anything going, and then, as you've mentioned, he kind of slipped into the Josh Warrington slipstream during COVID and went from strength to strength. And they've both been used as examples in the past of kind of taking each fight as it comes. Okay, I won the British title, let's see.
He was chucked in for that Kansu fight.
He was.
I don't know who probably did it. Was Eddie Hearn.
It was in Eddie Hearn's
They
garden.
didn't really think he'd win. They thought, well, listen, it's an opportunity for you. You know, it's more money than you've earned before, go for it. And that's no matter. I'm not criticising the promoter, but that's when something like that happened to me. I mean, just take your opportunity. Sometimes it comes off. But the chances are it's not going to happen. Kansu, not the best of fighters, but he was still a good fighter. I mean, you know, and we fancied Warrington to beat him, I thought, when it was on about the unification match. But still a dangerous fighter. But I mean, and he boxed perfect to instruction. He was really patient and clever. Not just wasn't just the power. I thought he boxed really well in there, stepping up a couple of levels from what he boxed before. Because even at British level, he won a British title, didn't he?
Reece Mould, yeah.
No,
He got hurt in that fight.
But I mean, but then that looked like he stepped up there.
Yeah.
You know, he gone above maybe he thought he would go. And for Josh Warrington, who's done it from literally selling tickets hand to hand, still does it, and live a proper boxing story. He deserves the opportunity against Lee Selby. He won British Commonwealth European title. He deserved this opportunity. But no one thought he was going to win. Even though he was in Leeds, no, I don't think anyone thought he was going to win, really. No. We might be I thought he could. None of the way, and he outboxed him. And Lee might have been tight to the weight or whatever the reasons are, but ultimately, he outboxed the guy. He didn't just out-fight him and out-hustle him, he outboxed him at times. And I was ringside that night, and I was scared for my life, by the way. But, I mean, it was brilliant. What a performance. What a way to win a world title. So he deserved the opportunity. I remember saying, it was on Box Nation, or it was on BT, wasn't it, actually? But we Boxing Show still going. We had that little magazine show, and I was saying he deserves a shot, but he's going to get totally outboxed. You've got to be honest. I can't see one way how he wins, and I couldn't. And he absolutely just boxed out of his skin. So, and then against Frampton,
it was his first defence as well, and everybody thought the same thing.
Step too far, Frampton. Frampton was still fresh then. I thought it was fresh enough, and I thought, no, I just can't see that high guard trying to hustle you. Frampton just be able to hit him too much, too clean. And those first 3 rounds were unbelievable. I know there was another fight on Sky, which was a bigger fight than in most people's eyes, which was Chisora and White, wasn't it?
The rematch, yeah.
But this was quality, it was brilliant. And he was the bully against Frampton. He was the bully, man. He was the power puncher, not Frampton. It was unbelievable. Like those first 3 rounds, I was just like, I can't remember seeing anything like it live at the time. Just unbelievable. So he just showed again how eclectic his style was. We just thought he was this guy with the high hands and high work rate with no power, and he showed he could move his feet well and get angles and box against one guy who's a tall, slick boxer in Selby, and then mix it with a guy who's clever but has a bit of power and snapping his punches in Frampton. It was just brilliant, and I thought, wow, he's like talk about winning a title and then making you. I know sometimes you win and it makes you a better fighter. I think as soon as he boxed Selby, he got in that ring, he just become a better fighter overnight. Like within the minutes watching him, actually, he was just getting better and better. And I thought, he's going to be hard for anyone to beat.
You've already mentioned that you kind of lean in towards where you're picking Warrington to win this weekend.
Spoiled the last part of the show.
That's all right, no worries.
I'm going to get away, that's why.
What does Leigh Wood have to do differently? No, I say do differently this time. He won the first fight, but I thought also Warrington was ahead at the time of the stoppage. What does Leigh Wood have to do to win this fight?
Well, I think he's got to try and stunt the work rate of Warrington, and that's a good jab. And I don't think the southpaws thing is a clever move. You tend to think it would be because southpaws take away the jab. I mean, southpaw stance almost automatically makes it harder for an orthodox fighter like myself to land with a good jab. But Warrington, his jab's an entry to go boom, 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 boom. And he comes forward, and with that he comes forward. That's where he gets won by his head all the time, because he's always a forward momentum. So he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He doesn't do it on purpose, but he's naturally that sort of fighter. And also the hook's round the head. He doesn't do it on purpose, but he's always coming forward. So when he throws the hook, he can't shorten it up because his body's almost a little bit like that. Not sort of like he's not coming in behind his feet. He's almost coming in with his feet. If that makes any sense. So he's almost over the front foot. So when he throws the hook, he can't shorten it. He just got to throw it. So it hits you on the back of the head and stuff, and it's effective because it rattles you. I don't think it's just a natural style for him. He's naturally a dirty fighter without being a dirty fighter. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just an actually rough fighter. There you go. So you've got to stop that. So that's a solid jab, and he has the power to, if he can time Warrington, almost let the first jab come, and then be brave enough to step in with that jab with the right side defence. Before that right hand comes through, you're going right through the middle. So you almost block the jab here and go bam, and let him feel it. If you can stop Warrington from rushing you like that, then he's bouncing around trying to hit you with clean tags. And I do think off the mark, I'm not sure about this stage of the career, but the one punch off the mark, I would say maybe Wood is maybe the faster. Warrington's the faster with combinations, but I think single punches, Wood might be the faster with slightly better timing. So I think Wood then will be able to, if he can slow him down with that, when Warrington does attack, then he'll start to be able to time him with the hooks coming forward. And then Kodnui has the power. And with that defence like this, which is a good defence, but it blinds your vision for hooks. So when you are coming forward, you won't see the hook. And that half what happened when you got stopped. Because you almost like it's like a defence like this, you don't really see outside here. Your peripheral vision's like sort of hidden. So you have to be route one then and sort of get inside the shots. But if you can lean back and catch him with the hook coming forward, but you have to get that jab in play first to stop that momentum. And once you stop that and make him think before he throws, then he's not going to outwork Warrington. That's not going to happen. And I don't think in many places he's going to outbox Warrington either. But if you can slow him down enough to time him when he comes in and stop him from working, then you have the power then to walk him down a little bit more, I think. And that would be the option. But I don't think... You don't outbox him for me. I think he has to stop him. Or hurt him enough to win enough rounds to make him slow him down, then he can sort of pick up the points. But yeah, I think it's a you got to go there with the intent, I got to get you out of here.
Andy, kind of mentioned earlier, both of these guys are in the latter stages of their career, should we say. I think there was rumours about both of them retiring. I mean, Wood after the Kakachi fight, and even Warrington after the Kakachi fight, there was kind of a lot of talk about would we see them again. I think the general feeling was probably not for both, but they are back here. Does the loser of Saturday night retire? Do you think it's that type of fight? I mean, Michael Conlon's still... I'm still amazed that we've not seen Warrington Conlon with their respective fan bases over the years. Obviously, Wood Conlon 2 is a fight that could potentially still be in the pipeline, but does Saturday kind of hold a lot of weight with regards to whether or not we see the particularly the loser again?
Well, it depends who it is, doesn't it? I think if Warrington were to lose and to be 2-0 down, then there would be no need for a third fight. So I think there would be calls for him maybe to call it a day. If it's Wood, then it's 1-1, and depending on what happens, I think people would be keen to see it again. And you mentioned Conlon, he's got a fight on March the 20th, hasn't he? He's still trying to win that world title. He still very much has that as an ambition. But
one of the most talented fighters from Ireland or whatever, or just say UK and Ireland, just put us all in one for 1 second.
Don't offend him, Barry.
One of the most talented not to win a world title.
Yeah.
When I look back, I think I won a world title, he's not going to win one. probably.
Well, that was a mad night in Nottingham, wasn't it? Against Wood, you know, it was a blistering atmosphere. I remember watching it. It looked fantastic, and he was pretty much there, Michael Conlon, pretty much there. But then it obviously went wrong. It went wrong at the end. It's for both of these two. I think they just kind of love it, though, don't they? I think it's going to be hard for them to call it a day. I think it's hard for anybody, obviously, but whilst there's still something out there, and if it's 1-1, then there's an obvious thing out there. But as you say, there's Conlon to be factored in, because that would be a big fight for either one of them. I don't know. I think whatever happens on Saturday, we'll probably see them both again.
What about? I was going to ask you too. What about? I'm asking questions now. When one of them put his gloves down after the Kakashi fight, I mean, is that? Do you think that's something that's no? Because he called it quits. I'm not quite sure how boxers feel about that. I know it's a hasty thing you do, and you want to sort of like finish with like a blazer, like a statement.
Yeah, I saw Thomas Assomba do it, and then he boxed again
Friday,
at the weekend. Yeah. And I think anything, for me anyway, anything that happens
but you got beat, didn't he?
in the ring, in the immediate aftermath, I don't really pay that much attention to it, because they're in a heightened emotional state, basically. I don't think, sometimes they'll stick to it, but you, strangely enough, often you'll get the most honest answers from them about what's just happened in the ring, and then subsequently they'll change their mind. You know, if they've lost, they will think, okay, well that doesn't work, so I'll kind of backtrack on that and say something else. And if they say I'm going to retire, or I'm going to think about it, you just think it's no place to be making decisions like that. So I remember seeing him leave the gloves and thinking to myself, I don't know if that really means much, to be honest.
Yeah, it's interesting you said it, because he actually, I spoke to him after the fight when he put the gloves down, and he said that he spoke to Kakashi backstage when they were both with the doctor, and then Kakashi was like, "Oh, you had me hurt, you had this," and he was like, "Oh yeah, I was close," and Kakashi's in the form of his career, and then maybe it's that, and you quite often get that, don't you?
Yeah, I remember watching that, and we were both ringside for that, and I thought Kakashi did win, but I thought it was a pretty good performance actually overall from Warrington.
And it was the type of fight that you
and
kind
that
of
was
feared
why
for Warrington.
I just felt like he's not going to go out off the back of that, because there will be enough for him to look at there and think, no, I've still got something to offer here.
Okay, let's have a look at the undercard this weekend in Nottingham. One fight in particular that I'm very, very intrigued by, as I'm sure you are as well, Barry, is Ishmael Davis versus Bilal Fawaz.
Really? Barry
Barry doesn't care. At £154. Really, really well-matched fight there.
Yeah, their stories. I'm not like that, no, they. I mean,
story time with Barry.
Stories. No, they're both brilliant stories in their own different ways. Like Fiaz's story is crazy, isn't it? Fawaz's story, his story is mad, unbelievable, like it's a movie. But Davis's story as well is like a proper UK kid that no one gives a shit about sort of story. I mean, it's just like. So where they are now is amazing. I mean, I think Davis is like, again, one of those kids who just say yes. I mean, and you won't believe how far it takes you. Just say yes. They're gonna fight him. Yeah, I'll fight him. Please note this. But we'll check it. I'll fight him. Josh Kelly. Yeah, I'll fight him. I mean, and have a go. By the way, have a go. Maybe not in the races from like almost all the fight against Kelly. I don't think. Well, yeah. And then it has a really good last round. And again, one judge had it really close, didn't he? But I didn't think it was close at all. And then Boacek, he stepped up a level, of course, with a guy who can really, really punch and strong, and that's fine. Got caught up, but you got to go to Riyadh and got paid good money. You would hope.
Both of those were late notice as well.
Yeah, I thought he did pretty well that night too, didn't he? Because he had a rough start, and you thought, wow, this could be over quick, and then he dug in and kind of rallied and came back into it, and then Boacek got on top again, and the corner just did exactly the right thing and got him out there nice and quick.
I think he's a better fighter. I think he'd be a better fighter. I mean, his whole basis, like his foot, his shape or whatever, is really good. Davis, I just think he fights at one pace all the time, which isn't effective. It wears you down. But I think you've seen it against a Jago that I just think, some guy who can move a little bit quicker. It just you're always a second behind them. And I think And you can't do it unless you do it in the gym. You can't do it on a fight. So you have to just train to just burst in attack. I also got to talk about the acceleration of pace and things like that. And that's what it is. Just every and again when you're going bam 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 bam, nice rhythm. And we'll talk about Barrios when against Garcia. That's the same sort of thing. It's now and again just change it because fighters get used to it. And they can time you. And if it's not to hurt you, it's to just make you miss and get out the trouble. So if you just every now and again you're going boom 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 boom. I mean, quicken your feet up now and again. You're walking down, and you slide in quicker. I mean, it's not a lot to adjust in your training camp, but you have to do it regular to do it in a fight. And if he'd done that, I mean, that makes him 10 times better. Little adjustment to doing those two things with the feet and certainly with the hands will make him 10 times better because he's strong. He takes a good shot. He has a good engine. He punches correct. A lot of good things he does. But he's up against a guy who can be really tricky, really awkward, and that. One pace. When you say one pace, it sounds disrespectful. It's like you're saying he's slow, and I'm not saying he's slow, but that even pace that he has against someone like Fawaz, who punches erratically and has strange movements, they might work off that, and then you get a shot going boom, boom, boom. He punches all sort of angles, and he'll slip and slide and turn, and that might be a struggle, and you're trying to close him into a corner then on the ropes. But if you can change the pace, your pace, and quicken it up a little bit now and again, and slow it down a little bit, he's not as confident to slip you in there because he's not sure he can't time your rhythm, and then you can suffocate him more quicker and more effectively, and do it earlier on and tire him quick. I think that's what Davis has to do: get him not hurt if he can, but certainly panicking as quick as he can by not giving him a lot of space to move around. You tend to think Fawaz, you look at him in some fights and he likes to be the bully, but ultimately I've seen him as a kid, he probably was a kid, I've seen him as an amateur in Hayes Workingmen's Club actually in the North Divs quarterfinals, I think it was, of London's, and he won, but he was dancing round, and also he has good feet, the movements are massive, it's really hard to time. But if you can just forget about all that and just boom boom boom, boom and quicken the pace up and go direct, pushing back straight away, all the bells and whistles then disappear. I think that's what I see Davis need to do. But if Davis is the same pace he's always been, which can be still win the fight doing that way, Fawaz will have loads of success as well and make it a really, really interesting fight.
Massive opportunity for Bilal. That's all right. We're used to it by now.
It was good though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was good. Very good.
It was.
Massive opportunity, Andy, for Bilal Fawaz. Of course, kind of had his breakout essentially with those two fights against Junaid Bostan. Obviously, one draw and then one narrow decision victory last time out. Massive opportunity for him and a fight that he's very, very much live in.
Yeah, he is 100%. What I really like about this fight is how these two have both got there. And like Barry said, Fawaz's backstory is very, very interesting. But then against Bostan, who was heavily fancied, a well-backed, correctly, prospect at the time because he's looked good. And you get the draw in the first fight, and obviously if it's a draw, then you could have got the decision. You know, there was people who felt he could have got the decision. It was a draw. And you wonder at that point, was that the chance? Is that the one that you'll look back on and feel like, if I just could have got over the line there, then I burst through a bit of a ceiling and everything can be different? Because then in the rematch, Bostan will be better, he'll have learned a bit of a lesson, and that moment will have just gone. But it didn't go because he managed to get the win. Again, it was tight, but he got the win. And you could see his reaction. He knew how massive it was for him because, you know, look at the kind of fight he's in now and look at the stage he's on now. And I felt that it was very similar for Davis against Gilly, because stepping up at short notice and taking those fights against Kelly and Bohachuk, that shows that you've got some balls, that you stay ready and that you're willing to accept challenges. But what you don't want to become is that person who gets judged by their losses, because he then lost to Kevin Hiraoka as well, didn't he? I think it was on a split.
Close.
And no fighter wants to be that guy who gets judged by their losses. You don't want to get in that habit, and that was 3 fights in a row where he lost, where you're judged by the caliber of your defeats, and you start to wonder, is this going to happen? And mentally it can affect a person. We talk about kind of sparring partner mentality. It's not quite the same, but it's kind of the same.
It's like opponent mentality.
You get used to really competing but not quite getting there. But then he beat Sam Gilly, who's good. you know, a good fighter, and now he's British and Commonwealth champion. And I wonder what kind of difference that can make. And that applies.
Good fight and all.
Yeah. But that applies to both of them. You know, what will we see from them now? Because they could well grow from this. But for Davis, I remember when that fight got made, I just thought he absolutely has to win this fight. He has to win this fight, because otherwise, even in his own head, although he would never admit it, he might not even really know it himself, you're the nearly man, and nobody wants to be one of them.
And the way you're promoted, more importantly, like he's not a massive marketable product. So they were chucking him in. It was like a good story. This kid, you'll fight anyone. He'll take this fight. Probably because he was cheap. But it doesn't matter how you get, because when you have no doors opened up for you, you don't care about the money. You're just getting the opportunity, and it's more than what you were getting before. So it might be relatively cheap, but to you, it's good money. But they were probably getting him on the cheap. Chuck him in. They don't care. They get him. I hope I'm wrong here, but I would guess
you could well be
that's
right.
probably what it is.
Yeah, you could well be. I'm sure that was a factor.
But now he's got titles, and now he's got more of a path that he'll think, and they'll think. But the titles will still, like a lot of fighters, like me, like a lot of fighters, the title is your currency.
Yeah.
So without that title, some fighters don't need it. Lucky them. Some fighters need it. Without that title, you're just another opponent who's hard to beat, and if now the secret's out with you, you're not going to get. No one's going to take you a late notice. I mean, if I had a fight and he just won a title and he got him, I'd go, nah. I would have the first time you offered him, but now I've seen what he's like. Even in defeats, I'm not taking ass. So it's a hard late notice. Because we got to train for him, boy. He's good enough to. You have to train for him, not just train. So he needs to keep his title. It's very important for him. I mean. Yeah, it is. Without the title, they're going to go, I don't know what I can do for you, mate. And then you go from going on big shows, and this can help you, by the way, because this is the risk and the worry, and this is what boxing is really like. You go from boxing on big shows to back down to small hall shows where no one sees you. And then you disappear.
I remember I had this conversation
it happens like that, though. It's such a cruel business. People see the rebuild of fighters, but most fighters don't get the luxury of having a rebuild. You lose... don't get a phone call and disappear, and that's not. I'm not blaming him for that. It's just a reality.
It's just a sport,
what's your word?
I had exactly this conversation with. I think he was with the Jennings, and Jack Cullen was involved in it as well. But about him, because he was in a series of big fights, and he gave it a good crack.
Yeah, good to watch.
And good to watch, but I think it was after Sad Joe that he just didn't box for quite a long time, because there just weren't really any fights out there for him. Or what's he going to do? Go back to a leisure centre show where he's going to get paid nothing by comparison? And the answer was no. Well, I don't really want to do that. And then you're stuck a bit.
Yeah,
it's exactly how you say. It's tricky. But now he's got those titles, and I just really
keep you sharp.
Yeah. He's British Commonwealth champion now, and that will never not be true. That will be true every day for the rest of his life.
And people talk about fear. It's not always fear of getting hurt. It's never fear of getting hurt, I don't think. If it is, there's a big problem. It's a fear of losing, embarrassing yourself, and all, like you're selling tickets on TV. That's a fear, a lot of people. But it's also the fear of that. What happens if I do lose? Where do I go? My career's over. The fear. Let's say, and Warrington and Wood probably have that same fear. My life's over. Well,
he would have had
that
fear.
I got to reinvent my life now. Any boxer.
I think he would have had that.
Him as well.
I think he would have had that fear. He really would have had that fear going into the fight against Gilly, because against Kelly and Bohachuk, it's short notice, and of course you're going to give it everything, but you do have a bit of a get out of jail free card, which is that, well, how can anyone really expect me to win this fight? And against Kelly, I thought he lost quite wide on the cards, but he got to him at the end,
and he had to go even when he was losing rounds, didn't he?
Yeah, he got to him at the end, and he was in a bit of trouble, Josh Kelly.
And how good did that defeat look now?
That's why those kind of fights mentally, if you let them, they can get into you, because you just think, well, yeah, fight short notice is kind of great because no one really expects me to win. As long as I give a good account of myself, then my stock can rise, and that's true. But then you can start to just develop the wrong kind of attitude, whereby it's like, so long as I go out there and just give my best, nobody can ask for any more than that. And whilst that's true of a lot of situations, in elite level sport, that is not good enough. You have to win. And against Gilly, I'm not sure he would have been in that place where he'd have been thinking, I absolutely must win this fight. This is it for me now.
Your mindset changes in a point that you'll take, on the way up, you'll take anything. Oh, give me anything to show I'm good enough. Well, once you get there, then he won't take a lead at this fight again now. You go, hang on.
He's done that, hasn't he?
Done that,
done that.
It's the same as always, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, you phone me, I'd turn up tomorrow for something for a couple of £100. No, everything's on my schedule. I've got something.
That's what Ishmael Davis is just a couple of losses away from being on this sofa with us every Monday.
If that's not motivation enough,
no one wants that.
Everyone's a couple of losses away from being here with us. Make no mistake, any of you out there.
But you'd have to make him.
You're all coming here at some point.
Because it's a 12-round distance. He's boxed at a higher level, and he's won now at a higher level. It's a big step up for Fawaz, I think, but he's erratic and orthodox, and he's Ishmael Davis is boxing the guy who had his mentality.
That's exactly it. That's what's so interesting about it, because Fawaz will look at Ishmael Davis, and in the way that Ishmael Davis was looking at Sam Gilly, and he'll just be thinking, this is what it's all been about to get to this point. This is what it's all been about. This is it. It's like a kind of like it's like a film script. This is it.
Sports
I cannot lose.
Yeah, sports for the dreamers.
Yeah. I love it. I love this fight. I really do.
Absolutely. Right, okay, quick whiz through the undercard. See Sandy Ryan against Carla Zamora for the WBC lightweight title. Return of Leo Atang as well, much touted heavyweight prospect. TMA Ayton as well. Doing a lot of very exciting things in the female code. Molly McCann and former host of the podcast, Dave Allen. Beat Johnny Fisher, doesn't need to be here anymore. It also goes the other way, guys. Yeah, you get a couple of big wins away from getting out of here as well. But Dave Allen also returns this weekend in Nottingham. Okay, and moving on to Las Vegas, Nevada this weekend. Mario Barrios defends his WBC welterweight title against Ryan Garcia in Sin City. Great card. I know we'd all love to be out in Las Vegas. But we're not.
I mean, Betfred are going to pony up for a trip somewhere.
We're working on it.
Didn't you know? You wrote that into the contract.
We're working on it. We're working on it.
I've got a tattoo.
This year, the show will go on tour. It's one thing that I have promised. I have promised.
Before.
Every time I keep saying it, I keep leaving the job. And then if we'd have done this a month ago, it would have just been us on holiday with no podcast.
The last tour we had, I bought the blue hat and flip flops and everything, the towel, everything. Beach ball.
We will do it this year at some point. Come on, Betfred.
Then you offered me Cardiff. The Cardiff.
Stay at Barry's house.
All the time.
Keep the accommodation low, you see, is always the way to go. But anyway, right, lot to talk about on this card because it's a stacked card with a lot of very interesting fights. So let's start on the main event. Andy, going to come to you first. First question I've got, does Ryan Garcia deserve this fight?
I thought you might ask me this because I think I'm developing this reputation for being some kind of wishy-washy, wet behind the ears man who doesn't really understand professional boxing, because I'll talk about meritocracy every now and again and people will lampoon me on Twitter for it. But I do understand that professional boxing is not pure meritocracy. I get that. But at the same time, I think by any real metric, you would have to say that no, he doesn't, because he lost his last fight and he lost it convincingly against Rolly Romero. And prior to that, people hold up this win against Devin Haley, but he blew the weight and tested positive for PEDs. So how anyone can take that seriously, I've really got no idea. And the fact that people do is one of the things that's really wrong with the sport. And the fact that Haney is held up as some kind of crybaby for not liking the fact that he got beaten by somebody who didn't do the weight and then tested positive for PADs just blows my mind. So when you look at all of that, I think you would have to say, no, he doesn't, but market forces. And he's a big name fighter, whether people like it or not. And it's not like he doesn't have anything on his resume in terms of people he's beaten. And he is kind of fascinating. And I get that part of it completely, because even in the build up to this, I'm looking at him and just thinking, what are we going to get from you? Yeah, well, that as well, you know. No, exactly, yeah. What are we going to get from you? Because you look at all that carry on before the Was it the Haney fight?
was the Haney
where
fight,
he
yeah.
just, and it was just utterly.
He was the biggest thing on the whole internet for like
bewildering.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
It was
It's
absolutely
insane to say that about a boxer.
Yeah, it was absolutely bewildering, and I just had no idea what was real and what wasn't real, and should he be sectioned or should he be allowed to fight? What on earth was going on? And I look at this one and I think, is he ready for this fight? You look at the check weighs, and he was late making his check weigh for 2 weeks out, which is 5%, and then 3% a week out. He made by a concerningly wide margin, which kind of suggests that he's kind of crashing those series of check weighs, which they're put in place to try and make sure that people can't do the weight that way, but you can't stop them doing the weight that way. So where is he physically and mentally? That's always my question with him, and I just don't think there's any real way of knowing it. But he can fight. There's no question he can fight, and he does do quite a lot wrong, but at the same time, he's got power. He's got proper power. So I think I probably would make him a favourite going into this.
Barry, we spoke about him. It seems like we were always saying the same thing about him, apart from around the Haney fight and obviously the kind of the subsequent fallout from that, where there was some real issues that we discussed. But it's been kind of put up or shut up time for Ryan Garcia for a little while. But as Andy mentioned there, the fundamentals are there. He has blinding hand speed, got good power, particularly in the left hook. He's people make out like he's just some social media star. He's been boxing since he was a little kid.
100 plus fights.
Yeah. So he clearly has something there. But I mean, as Andy mentioned there, in the build up to this fight, he's been trained by his dad. We're seeing a lot more footage of him kind of sort of remind me of Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. when he was preparing to box Sergio Martinez, where he's like training in his living room, like eating Cocoa Pops in his pants and stuff. Like it's kind of, you don't really, and with Garcia, you don't really know whether is it show, is it just kind of how he is? You don't really know what's going on.
Remember Mayweather? We used to be out all nights.
Yeah,
partying, eating
on
burgers
all
at 3
access
o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, exactly.
In reality, he was training like a lunatic,
Yeah.
because that's the way he was. So yeah, they can sell you a narrative to what's going on, but he is unhinged, so you're not quite sure, and it is a big worry. And there's no secret; he hasn't made a secret to that. The fact that we haven't heard loads from him, I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. We'll find out fight week what sort of mental state, or have a guess of what sort of mental state he's at. But he can fight, and he has that bristling hand speed and power. But also those things can mask some things you do wrong. Like he has a good jab, but when he throws the jab, it's like there's a string on the back of his neck. So every time he throws a jab, his head goes like this all the time. Because he's so fast and he has power, you're wary of what's coming. You don't see the jab, and also you're wary of another punch because you know he can hit hard. So he gets away with a lot of stuff he does wrong. Is Barrios the one to expose that? I'm not quite sure. Barrios is a good fighter, but I'm not quite sure if he's going to have the again, my favourite saying now, it's gone, pivot's gone. Injection of pace to maybe exploit some of the mistakes that he makes. You got to be, when Ryan throws, I think you got to be brave to sort of slide in with him. I think, because their chin's in the air, so you got a target to hit. But he does have fast hands and he has good vision, so he can hook off the jab really well. So if you get that slide forward wrong, he can pull that jab back and wrap that left hook and you're done. Or he can take he jumps back, leaps back sometimes and get that right hand into play. That's don't want to be on the end of that. But if he's committing to his attacks and you can slide through the middle, I mean, the chins like this, it's a gift for you. But I think you got to be really sharp, and maybe that moving. I'm sure Barrios is. Barrios has a good rhythm. I know we're not talking about him, but we are now. I mean, he has a really good rhythm. I like him. I think he's a good fighter. People are massive saying he's not that good because he struggled with a Pacquiao, and I understand that. He just does nothing fantastic. So you tend to think he's a beatable fighter because of that, and that makes him a beatable fighter. But no one's going to beat him easy. I would say that. But to say that, I think Garcia is a massive favourite, and I do fancy him for the stoppage. So, because I just don't think Barrios has a quick enough hands and feet to really make Garcia worry about what he's doing. So he'll be able to, not have a free range of letting his punches go. He'll be able to evade a lot of the Barrios attacks by just jumping out of distance all the time, but then have the quick enough feet and hands to come back with his own punches quick enough and leave you over your front foot. That's how it goes. So I see the left hook unravelling everything ultimately. And he is a maverick. He doesn't deserve the opportunities, but as Andy said, that ship sailed a long time ago. Thank you. And it did sail a long time ago. I mean, it might seem worse now than ever before because you shouldn't be getting a world title shot off a loss unless it's a rematch and it's controversial. But again, that ship sailed a million years ago. And there's a guy waiting in the wings who people are arguing, and I agree, doesn't deserve the opportunity, but he's going to be next in line possibly with Conor Benn. So you know what I mean? There's two guys there who maybe haven't shown at that division that they deserve a shot, because Ben's been boxing at the middleweight, and Ryan Garcia has lost and won a fight where he had to take drugs and didn't make the weight, so he hasn't really boxed at the welterweight. I mean, fighting for the title possibly next. It's the business we're in.
And it's arguably one of the bigger fights in the whole division. It's one of the biggest fights in the sport.
And a fight I'd love to see, by the way. It's a great fight to watch, I think. With all its flaws and everything else, it's a fantastic fight to watch. And it sells better than almost any other fight. And they'll do massive figures and they'll get paid fortunes and you can see it happening. But you got to get past Barrios first. And I think he will. But it won't be. I think, you have to think. And if he did knowingly take drugs, I don't know how well what happened, but it was in his system. If that helped him with a better performance against Haney, let's just say, for argument's sake, it did, but I don't know it did. Be careful, don't get sued by anybody. But then, if he's not on those things now, or he hasn't taken anything by knowingly or accidentally, then will he be just as sharp at this weight and just as powerful? Because when you move up in weights, tend to think punches are not as intimidating. Because people they're bigger, they absorb it just a little bit better. It's usually the guys with boxing ability can move up weights more effectively, I think. Unless they have freakish power that just carries on, and he might have that, but he has speed. And speed, even though it masks a lot of his deficiencies, is his friend. And the more you go up in weight, if you maintain that speed, if you're fast as a lightweight, how fast you're going to be as a welterweight. You know what I mean? They're not going to see it. And actually with Andy, he's got a good resume. I mean, it might be a lower weight. I mean, I just, two off the top of my head, was Luke Campbell, who was a really good fighter, underrated, I think. Got rid of him quite easily. And
got off the floor as well. That? Got off the floor, didn't he? Too?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And Fortuna as well.
Oscar Duarte.
Duarte, well,
he's fighting for a world title this weekend. That's he stopped Oscar Duarte as well.
And Duarte's got a good chance, by the way, on Saturday.
Which we'll come on to. You mentioned there about kind of the difference, should we say, in the Ryan Garcia of the Devin Haney fight. Again, was found to have 60 times the legal. I mean, people talk about the Subriel Matias incident with the Osterine before the Dalton Smith fight. His was considerably below the threshold, whether you agree on it or not.
I've got to say one thing, right? I know it's not the topic, but people pick what fights and fighters to be outraged about.
Oh yeah,
that's always been the case. It's an epidemic, pandemic, whatever it is in our sport, right? It really is. But I never get outraged about none of it anymore because I don't understand how much the levels, if it's worse or better, I don't know.
It can do, just for this specific incidents, like it depends on the commissions. And in the New York State Athletic Commission, you have a permissible. You have an amount that is considered to be consistent with contamination, which was Subriel Matias's levels of Osterine, whereas Ryan Garcia's was 60 times the allowable or the permissible or whatever amount for contamination. So there was a marked difference in that. But the point that I'm making, there was a massive difference between that Ryan Garcia and the Ryan Garcia who kind of went out with a whimper against Rolly Romero. I mean, he was hurt early in that fight by Rolly Romero and never really kind of got himself into the fight. And, the cynic, boxing's full of cynics, 3 of them here, will look at that and say, well, there's the difference. You've got the version of him against Devin Haney, 143 pounds and change or whatever it was, plus the Osterine in his system, and the difference between him against Rolly Romero, Andy.
Yeah, and that's just that for me. Those are facts, as far as I'm concerned. They are just facts, and I don't really see how anyone, even in this world we live in now, where everybody likes to kind of deny facts and make up their own alternative facts, can dispute that. And it's there in front of you, staring you in the face. And he didn't really look like he wanted to be in there against Romero either. And as Barry says, it's one of those scenarios now where you just we all just kind of get on with it, don't we? And it's not ideal, but people do tend to pick and choose who they're going to be outraged about and who they're not. And I just find I found the Haney thing, the reaction to it. I don't want to go on about it, but I found it absolutely bewildering that you could follow sport and not think that Haney was massively wronged there. But
even, sorry to interrupt, you even had like professional fighters saying it as well. Yeah, well, he still didn't keep his hand up. Like, what does that got to do with anything? So but Pence don't make you throw a better left hook. Well, makes you throw a harder one, and makes you be able to throw it for 12 rounds rather than.
That's why you don't get tired. Things don't get tired.
In training, you're able to make the weight or whatever weight you decided to make anyway.
When you're supposed to be fatigued, if that's what it does, if that helps you in that way, you're supposed to be fatigued. I mean, people forget when you're tired, your vision's not as good. Your concentration starts to wane. That's when you get seriously hurt. I mean, we saw it in the last round against Nick Bull. That's fatigue to play the part in there, but he's knackered. Not seeing it. That shot it wasn't a crunching shot, was it? It was a good shot, but it wasn't a crunch. If you land with that shot in round 6 or 5, it's just a good shot. But you're fatigued. You don't see it as well. You just get you and you're done. But you almost, and like if my tank's emptying like this and yours is slowly emptying, then it's a danger. It's just because you're taking something to help maintain that. Then that's not just cheating. That's like manslaughter potentially.
That's why the lawsuits and stuff came afterwards, which again was kind of, it's held against Haney as some sort of.
He should do. He's standing up for the sport. People should be championing him, saying you're just. He might be looking after his own interest, but he's championing for the sport.
We've said this in the past.
Someone to hold them accountable for it.
But with fighters, it's almost like he's kind of snitching, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's a rule you don't break. And I've accepted a very long time ago that mentality-wise, I'm not the same as a professional boxer. I don't think about things in the same way.
Fight anyone.
I don't think about things in the same way. There's a disconnect there, and I look at what they do, and I'm not remotely jealous of it. I couldn't do that. I don't want to do that. The more I look at it, and the more I get to know Barry and other pundits, I cannot believe that you did it. Not you specifically, but just that anyone does it.
I take that as a
because
you fucking did it.
Because it's so hard, and the attitude towards it is things like that. It's really hard line. It's no. What happens in that ring, you get on with it. You don't complain. You don't go to the authorities. You don't go to the police. We are anti-establishment. We do not moan. We get on with it. We're warriors. And I just can't get my head around it some of the time when it comes to situations like that one. But
the thing is, Haney might be a whinger and a moaner, and he might cry about everything. He might get genuinely beaten, do the sit and cry again about something. He might do that. But in this case, I think he's justifiable to go, hang on a minute. Like not only have I got a loss on my record, by the way, that even though said it's a no contest or whatever, and you get just so you get your title back and you get more money and he gets fined, all that, and it all seems great. There you go, you got a title back and the loss is stricken from your record. The damage is still there.
But
it still happens, yeah. It's like to give a kind of analogy, it's like a miscarriage of justice. Somebody goes to prison for something they didn't do. It gets corrected, and there's this big fanfare and kind of, oh, yay for us. Everyone's patting themselves on the back. He was still in there for however long.
But either way, it's a good fight.
It's a great fight, and also it feels like a fight that, like we've spoke about it in the not too distant past about the welterweight division. I think we spoke about it on the last show about how it's a far cry from the welterweight division of 5 or 6 years ago. Even the Spence, Crawford, Danny Garcia, Keith Thurman, Kell Brooks, era. Go further back of Mayweather, Pacquiao, Cotto, like those guys, Marquez, like obviously smaller guys have moved up. But this feels like a big fight for kicking off this next round of activity at welterweight. You've got Devin Haney, who's got a belt up there. Yeah. You've got Conor Benn waiting in the wings. Obviously, if Ryan Garcia were to win this fight, it's a big star with a title. It kind of feels, Barry, like...
Romeo's a sellable fight there.
It feels like a fight that could well be, Keyshawn Davis is kind of calling the back and forth between him and Devin Haney at the minute is good for the division. It's good for the sport. But it feels like this fight this weekend between Barrios and Garcia could be quite pivotal in kicking off the next 3 or 4 years at welterweight.
Well, it gives someone... he might not be the best fighter in that division if he wins, Ryan Garcia, but he'll be the superstar.
Be the best looking.
the best looking, as both said. Like, I know he's fantastic. He's a good looking guy, but I mean, this is what it is, isn't it?
You said, when we started talking about money.
Could just to take the piss out of him. That's all. It didn't work though, and I got ridiculed for it. But another word I learned from you, thank you. But he's the big name, and he's the big character. And I think that in a division you always need that. And then because everyone around the weight saying we want to go. Keyshawn Davis, I know he's still want to box his mate, which drives me mad. But he wants to move her, but he want to move her quicker. No, because he want Garcia, just in case he moves up again. And everyone, Conor Bennet be calling him out, and everyone else and then Josh Kelly said I can still make welterweight. It'll be all come up to my weight. It'll all be like that, and then all the games start. And I think it makes it exciting again. Because I do think that welterweight division is probably one of the most sexiest divisions of all time.
Yeah.
And it seems like the middle ground, doesn't it, for the weight classes for me. And when that's flourishing, because you get everything, you get the speed, the intelligence, the power, the strength.
It's one of the best. I mean,
a bit like middleweight's the same, but I think even more so as well because they add a little bit faster, so you get more endurance.
Historically, they're such good divisions, aren't they? Yeah. Go way back.
And it's kind of also it's kind of
super featherweight. But,
it's kind of been around that like the last 2 or 3 years. It's kind of lost its way a little bit, I think. Since Crawford obviously cleaned up all of the belts and then went to 54 and then obviously 68 after that. Obviously Ennis unified, but didn't really stay there for very long. Wood didn't really have the dance partners either. You've got kind of rattled off the names already: Garcia, Devin Haney, Keyshawn Davis. Romero's not necessarily of that level, but he's a good character.
Yeah.
Conor Ben's knocking around. Manny Pacquiao is still in the mix. You know, how big would a Ryan Garcia Manny Pacquiao fight be?
But this is what I find
massive fight.
But what I find interesting about Barrios is
whether you like it or not, it's
a good fight.
Is that he is just continually disrespected, isn't he? People will pick him out as the guy. Oh well, I can beat him and get a title. I could get that title against Mario Barrios. Like people would talk about it for Conor Ben. Well, he could drop down and fight Mario Barrios. Pacquiao comes back. Well, I fight Mario Barrios and win a WBC title. And if you're Mario Barrios, you're sitting there thinking,
a fortune.
You're sitting there thinking, sorry, what?
Yeah.
So sorry, what? Like, why does everybody think they can beat me all of a sudden? And it wouldn't be a massive upset, I don't think, if he were to win.
But it gives him market value, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh, it does. Yeah, it's not a bad thing for him. But I'm just saying, if you're him, you're probably thinking this is good, but hang on a second. Why does everybody think I'm some mug that anyone can just beat?
He obviously had the stoppage loss to Gervonta Davis in a fight. Really, he kind of was done with 140 pounds, and then he was kind of lured back because massive Gervonta Davis payday. Not to take anything away from Davis's win, but he was stopped by Davis. So got beat by Keith Thurman. Had the really tough fight with Ramos on the Taylor Serrano 3-2. One of the Netflix undercards. So he's kind of like people. Like you can get why people do look at it. Yeah, I can't remember which one. I was away somewhere. Anyway,
it was Tyson, wasn't it?
That was it. It was a Netflix show which had Taylor Serrano as the co-main. So you can kind of see why people do look at that. But he's a consistent fighter. He's boxed all of those guys as well. So he boxed Batir Akhmedov as well at 140 pounds.
Fight really well.
Very good fighter.
Really
so he's been there.
He's a good fighter. He is. It just there's nothing outstanding. And I guess when you're gauging it up, you go, he's not mega fast. He hasn't got massive power, though he can punch, and he has got decent speed. His rhythm's really good. But like I've been saying, all the theme of the podcast for me, there's no change in his rhythm. And that's what I already said earlier. I think Ryan can capitalise on that, I think. Yeah, I think Barrios needs fighters to come right at him in straight lines or try and box him, more conventional. Then I think his bouncy feet can make him more competitive. But I think someone who can jump in really quick, like a Pacquiao, will cause you problems. And Ryan Garcia does have that lightning speed. He does. And the power on the end of it. So at some point, you might find it hard in the early rounds to break in there, I think, Ryan Garcia. But at some point, he's going to get it. He's going to find the target. And then we're just guessing on Barrios' toughness, aren't we? How we can cope with that. But I think with Garcia, they're the shots you don't see when he catches you, when it's real, that real speed's on, when he gets that real speed into play. I mean, you just don't see it, and then you're done. I don't care who you are. I mean, that's the magic of him. You don't think he's a great boxer, and he does loads of things wrong, but he does have that X factor, that if he catches you, You're done. And almost whoever you are, because he has natural power, but he has speed with it as well. It's just crazy fast. So you can never count him out of any fight, really. But he can be beat. And Rowley showed that. I mean, and Rowley has injection of pace in his work.
Heavy-handed as well.
Yeah, no, but so he gives you some of the fear, but he can rattle it off when he wants to. And he's a hard fighter to read at times. So that makes you think. The more you think, the less you do. That's quite often. That's my new motto. But it is, the more you think, the less you do. I think, and that's why I always say all the time. Well, your whole sometimes, quite often, is you trying to put more thoughts in your opponent's brain to slow him down, to allow you to do your work. And that's where your brain. I say that sometimes as well. Brilliant boxing brain sometimes to overthink things. Like great fighters like Leonard and people like that knew when to shut their brain off. Sounds crazy, but it is. To do the wrong thing at the right time to get the win. Like when you get hurt and get up and you should be looking safe, you don't. You go for it because you've seen something, but you switch your brain off enough not to overthink it. Where people like me would always overthink things and do the safe thing first, and never take that risk of trying to get a stoppage. Like I want to punch it, but obviously everyone can punch. But I would never take the risk. Hang on a minute, that's enough. Boom, boom, that's enough. I'm 2-1 ahead. I mean, it's good, clever. But at some points, that doesn't work. That I found that out the hard way, and you do. I mean, that's what we all do. You're good at what you're good at. But I mean, but great fighters, which I wasn't one of them, could know when to go. No, this is it. And stupid fighters who get beat just do that too early. It's by millimeters, isn't it? It's all about timing and making the right choice at the right time. And I think Barrios doesn't quite have that. Just have speed and changing pace to really worry Garcia, who will be allowed time to pull the trigger. I don't know what I went there.
That's okay. I was with you. I was with you the whole way.
You saved yourself 25 minutes if you get rid of that shit.
That's right. We're good. Yeah. Anyway, moving on to the undercard and a couple of fights in the 140-pound division, Andy, which has some British interest potentially down the line. And we're going to start with the WBA 140-pound title, Antuanne Russell against Andy Hiraoka, a battle of southpaws. Not an awful lot. I think the general, maybe casual boxing public are not really massively familiar with Andy Hiraoka, but a fight that I'm really, really looking forward to. Should be a good matchup.
Yeah, it's a bit of a sleeper on the card, isn't it? And I think you're right. I think most people are looking at it and they're looking at the left-hand side and they probably don't know too much about the right-hand side. They might not know loads about the left either. And possibly making the assumption that he's going to win the fight, Russell. But it's a hard fight. It's a difficult fight because we were talking about this before we came on air, and he's not his brother, Antuanne Russell. There's so many of them that I think people.
So you're
think
saying
that
Gary Russell's not Gary Russell?
He both is and isn't Gary Russell. It's a nuanced argument. It's a nuanced argument. He is and he isn't. It's
just
an
couldn't be bothered to look past
thing.
the G section of the baby name.
I admire the laziness of his dad. Just call him all Gary.
Dad's no longer with us.
But when someone comes first, it's quite easy to feel like everybody who comes after with the same surname, the same genetics, if you like, will be the same in terms of their style. But they're not, are they? The pair of them, they're not.
No.
And I think you see more of Hiraoka than I have, but it does look like this is a very live fight.
Yeah, massively. Barry, we were talking about it beforehand about Andy Hiraoka, very well organised, southpaw, good, decent power. He's not been in the ring an awful lot recently. His last fight was against Ishmael Barroso. I always forget his name for some reason. Oh, I'm getting old. But
Speaking of old,
that's happening to me increasingly now as well.
Barroso looks about 90, doesn't he?
You get to the point where you don't want to say, the old guy who boxed so-and-so, because it's a really disrespectful thing to say.
Escapes me.
But yeah, Ishmael Barroso was the fight that got him this mandatory position. But a lot to like about Andy Hiraoka. And for me, anyway, Antuanne Russell still largely unproven at 140 pounds. Won against Valenzuela, but Valenzuela not a 140-pound fighter. Lost quite clearly, I thought, to Alberto Puello as well, Antuanne Russell. This is a real test for him.
I think it's beat. I honestly do. I think you look at them, you think both similar fighters, both want to be aggressive. And Hiraoka's not the typical Japanese sort of fighter where he doesn't keep his shape that well. I mean, they're all quite very formative, aren't they? Whether they're aggressive or boxers, they're all quite high and tight. He's a little bit more slipping and sliding, isn't he? When he comes forward, he likes to put his hands a little bit low, so he's a target to be hit. That's the worry. So against a slickster, against another Gary Russell, who would be able to dart in and out with his movement, with his feet and speed, I think he beats Hiraoka quite well, because he dart in, throw the punches, pivot off, move away, and just reset and go again. And he'd be trying to wing punches in, but Russell's going to come right at you, and he's a target to be hit as well. He's not the most elusive, and he has bull-like strong strength, and he does punch hard, I know that. But Hiraoka, even though he is aggressive, he leaps out and then comes back in. And I think that's what's going to win him the fight, just that little change of movement. Because Russell's going to be there expecting a war. Hiraoka's going to go, yeah, I'm here for you, no worry. And he's going to be throwing at more different angles, but Russell's probably going to be the cleaner, more direct route with his shots, I would say that. There'll be a bowl of shots over the top, but I think they're going to be more conventional and probably more solid, the shots. And Hiraoka might sit, but every again, Hiraoka's going to break it and bounce off and then come back in with a couple of shots. And I just think that different movement there is just going to blow Russell out of the water. Not out of the water, it's going to be a really hard competitive fight. But I think that'll be the difference, because things like that, scoring a fight, which might be quite boom, 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 that jumping in with a combination, just you remember things like that. They're clear punches to see, and they will knock the head back because you're not expecting this, a different speed in the shot, and you get a different angle. I think that'll be the difference. I mean, that's not a guarantee there, by the way. That's just my idea of what's going to happen. I might be totally wrong, because ultimately Hiraoka will want to power forward. That's what he wants to do. He wants to be the strongest guy in the room. But Russell certainly, definitely, always has to be the strongest guy in the room. But he can be outboxed. We've seen that against Puello, and he's up against a guy who's going to match him for strength, I think.
Yeah, for me,
it's a great fight though. This best fight of the night.
It's
I mean, the undercard's better than the top of the bill.
Yeah, arguably, yeah. There's the other £140 title fight, which obviously we'll come on to and talk about. One of the things that I was looking at with Gary Antuanne Russell, he does share one thing with, well, he shares two things with his brother. His name is one of them, and he's not been the most active either. And you kind of go back and you look at the opponents that he's had. He's kind of been a once-a-year fighter, which is not, in recent years anyway. It's not.
Was he a PBC fighter?
Yes, he is. But he's not really had those kind of. Though he boxed Victor Postel, and Victor Postel was a very good fighter in his day. When he boxed him, I didn't think he was at his best. It was kind of the tail end version of him. I thought he was really poor against Rancis Barthelemy, another southpaw with good pop in his punches as well. Was hurt in that fight a few times.
Smaller guy though.
Smaller, and a very dodgy stoppage in that fight as well. A very premature stoppage. I mean, he had Barthelemy hurt, but I didn't think it was. I didn't think it was the best of decisions by the referee. Mentioned there, he lost a split to Alberto Puello, but I thought Puello won that fight fairly convincingly. And then obviously beat Jose Valenzuela, who again is more of a lightweight super featherweight rather than a 140 pounder. So I think he's got a lot to prove, Gary Antuanne Russell. He really, as does Andy Hiraoka. You wouldn't. There's nothing on Andy Hiraoka's resume that screams out as a massive win that you wouldn't back Gary Antuanne Russell to go and do the same thing. But
he's got some good wins on his record though as well, I think, Hiraoka. So I mean, no screaming standout names, but he got good solid wins. I think it's a good fight. I do fancy the way win.
And the winner of this fight, I mean, it's been discussed sort of recently as to be a potential opponent for our very own WBC super lightweight champion Dalton Smith, who of course had that brilliant win over Subriel Matias. So by the looks of things, he's going to be boxing Alberto Puello, who we've already talked about in his first defence in June in Sheffield, maybe. But the winner of this fight could well provide an opponent for Dalton Smith as a unification opponent.
Yeah, I mean that's what he'll be looking at, isn't it? Is if he could get the fight with Puello won, then that's the natural thing to do. Is look around for who's the most viable option to unify, and you'd fancy him, I think, wouldn't you, against the winner of this fight? Not that it's some kind of given by any stretch, but you look at what he did against Matias, and you wonder how much better he's going to be for that now, Dalton Smith. Because one thing is definitely not going to happen with him. He's not now all of a sudden going to go mad and start thinking he's the greatest fighter the world has ever seen and go crazy and start buying a load of bling and, all of a sudden just appear in places where he's not supposed to be. That's not going to happen.
I'd love it if he did now, though.
Imagine if he did. Yeah. Imagine if he did. He's not going to do that, which means hopefully that he will just grow So yeah, that could be something we see down the line, couldn't it? Definitely.
Be very interesting as well to see what happens. I mean, by the looks of things, he's going to have that homecoming, as every world champion who certainly wins a world title abroad or away from home wants to have that homecoming fight. But beating Subriel Matias the way that he beat Subriel Matias, he's got stock now in the States.
Like time.
America, again, they always kind of look at our world champions, apart from Barry, as beneath them and whatever, and but they won it over there, they did this, but he won a world title traveling against an established, not an American opponent, but somebody who was known in the States as a legitimate opponent, and he did a really good job on him. So you would think that Dalton Smith could take that fight in America, and people would be you're not just a Brit who's coming over. This is a legitimate fight. So yeah, that could be a really, really big fight. But elsewhere on the card, there is, of course, another world championship bout in the super lightweight division for the IBF title. Richardson Hitchins against Oscar Duarte. Barry, you said that Gary Antuanne Russell versus Andy Hiraoka is the fight of the card. If that is the fight of the card, then Richardson Hitchins versus Oscar Duarte can't be far behind.
Yeah, it is. The good thing on this fight is that similar-ish styles to Duarte, Hitchins had trouble with. But that's why I fancy him. Ironically, I think he must have learned from those now. I think, but the lack of a solid jab worries me with Hitchins, and he has good movement, he has fast hands, he's a good boxer, and, but the jab's weak, sometimes too weak, and against strong fighters who can slip and slide coming forward and punch the way Duarte does, you've got to give him a deterrent, or he's going to walk right through you. And we've seen that with Lemos and what's his name, that he allows him an entry route and then makes it a tough night for him, Hitchins. So he's not the finished article by any stretch of the imagination, but I do fancy him too. I do think he'd be cleverer this time, because he knows he's been in those 2 hard wars. I think he's been in those 2 fights where he probably thought he had the ability to outbox people, but they've shown that they can just walk through him a little bit and make it a tough night for him. And the Parrow, see, the thing with Parrow was always going to be a hard night because just the energy that he has, and Parrow's moves a lot as well, and boxing not just one way. So he's always going to give you a hard night, Parrow. I mean, you're never going to win, even if you win wide. It's never going to be an easy night with him because he's just so energetic, and can come forward and also box on the move. But I think Duarte will be so zoned in on trying to get to him and hurt him and try and stop him that he just might, if Hitchins can get a bit more strength in that jab, might be able to use his feet a little bit better, just create gaps to pop him with combinations, just frustrating him enough. I don't think it's going to be a great fight to watch, actually, to be honest. I mean, if I think Hitchins is going to win, then the way he wins, I do think a lot of it will be with moving, negating his work, so trying to slow him down and steal rounds. I spoiled that one, didn't
I? So don't bother watching that one. I'm selling it as well.
It'll be a good fight, but I don't think it's going to be the rip roarer like that Russell will be with Hiraoka. Yeah,
that you would imagine that's going to the styles. I get what you're saying. Yeah, the styles will mesh probably better for a better fight in the other fight. But this is a good stylistic matchup in a sense. You've got the bull and the matador, haven't you? Often, if the matador beats the bull, it's not a great fight.
But sometimes though, because I've been the matador against the bull and been a really good fight. Just the one. I mean, I've got another one, but I got battered in that one. But where they literally force you to throw punches, and I think Duarte has enough strength, and Hitchins because sometimes people are weak enough to force that out of him. He's going to have to fight under pressure and throw in flurries and be his back on the road quite often when he's having to spin around all the time and that sort of fight and win that way, possibly. But I think if he can get a foothold early and negate it quite quickly, and it's always going to be a fight that he's going to concentrate for 12 rounds, but I think he can just slow Duarte down enough. If Duarte comes in with the mindset, I'm just going to destroy you, and it's a little bit over gung-ho, maybe. But if he's cleverer, then it could be a good fight in that vein where, the more success the bull has, the more the matador has to respond, Hitchins has to respond, and then you will see a good, exciting fight that way. But you tend to really think, going by the rule of thumb, that if it's only an exciting fight if Duarte's having success, I guess.
Andy, looking forward to it?
Yeah, I like Hitchins because I think he's a good example of something we were talking about earlier on, where he was in that position for a while of being someone who he was trying to get a look in, he was saying things and no one was really listening to him. you got the impression that he was someone that people had decided they didn't really care about, and he had to make people care about him, and he's made people care about him by winning a title. And I feel like he knows that if he has an off night and he loses that title, people will quite happily and quickly go back to not caring about him again. And that, I think, gives you a nice edge. I think it puts you where you need to be. For that reason, I fancy him. I fancy him to get the win, because he knows. Yeah, you said it earlier on, the title being your currency, and I think he's one of those. He's one of those guys, and I think he's aware of it.
Also, mentioned Dalton Smith. Wouldn't be right to mention Dalton Smith without Adam Azim, apparently. Adam Azim also in the IBF
you kind of now though.
Well, you can now, yeah.
For the first time for a long time. Sorry.
But in realms of this conversation, purely because Adam Azim is in the IBF rankings, he was obviously due to box Gustavo Lemos, who had that very, very close fight. In fact, that I thought he won against Richardson Hitchins, which was the final eliminator for the IBF title. Adam Azim, if and when that fight gets rescheduled, which it looks like it will, Azim versus Lemos, could be in line for maybe not the winner in their next fight, but down the line, the winner of this fight we could see against Adam Azim.
Yeah, and it would be good. I mean, it'd be great to see that, because with Azim, things have been a little bit more stop-start recently than they would have liked. There was no choice really with the Lemos situation. Lemos was injured as well, but Nahir Albright was going to come in, wasn't he? But then he had the hand problem, and you can't mess around with stuff like that because it's too big a risk to take at this stage.
And a stupid opponent to have, by the way.
Yeah.
As a replacement.
Yeah. And
on the undercard.
I think Ramadan starts this week, actually. I think it starts like tomorrow or Wednesday.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be. I think
so it's going to be like May time, probably, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because there's. Yeah, that's just how the calendar works for him, basically. But now is the time where he's got to not start delivering, because I think the way that he's progressed has been really good, but Dalton Smith's ahead of him now. Like you say, Dalton Smith is ahead of him. And it was never really a race, but it kind of was. No one really wanted to say it, but it kind of was. And Dalton Smith now can legitimately say, I don't need you. Because he doesn't. He doesn't. You know, what they've always said, Team Azim, is that Azim is kind of they would say the bigger name, better to watch, boxing on Sky, and with all of that stuff behind him, now the BBC, and with all that stuff behind him. But Dalton Smith can say, well, it doesn't matter because I'm a world champion and you're not. And
won a world title in, again, we mentioned
earlier. And
look
how I did it.
In a way that has resonated with the US audience and the US public.
Yeah.
Like the US boxing fraternity.
They know who he is now.
And they respect him as a legitimate world champion.
But even us, we've seen Dalton Smith win in a way that we didn't think he could win. Against a guy who he shouldn't have boxed that way, by the way. Should have boxed to his strengths. And he just showed himself. You might do it in the gym, but to do that in the biggest fight of your life and to be a bully against the bully, it just was brilliant. But I like it for Adam Azim because, I mean, he want to box Dalton Smith tomorrow. Of course he will, and he fancy he could win. And there's no mean, and I mean that's a great fight down the line for us boxing fans. But he's a younger man. To create a bit of distance now is not a bad thing. They're not doing it on purpose, but you got to get his fight to get the opportunity to box for a world title, where Dalton Smith might be 2 defences down the line. It's a big gap there.
Might be a unified champion by the time it happens.
Yeah. So do you know what I mean? So you're it's almost your worlds apart, and so you do something different, and that gives you a chance to keep that learning curve, which is fine. Can you go all the time in the world? We don't want massive longevity in the sport, but you want to get to, when you get to a title, you want to be able to not just get there and then hang on. With his ability, you want to get there with the seasoning to stay there for as long as you're fit enough to stay there until your career's over. I mean, always at that level, not just get up there and get beat really quickly and go with a flash in the pan, for instance. And if you do it young, sometimes quite often it's flash in the pan because you haven't got the man strength, the experience of things that you have encountered, people roughing you up and things not working and taking shots, all that stuff that you boxers you have to tick. Or we want you to tick, you don't have to tick them, but we like to see it. So
for our approval, you must tick those boxes.
Yeah. And for your approval and your coach's approval, that you know what he can go through to get through the other side. And I think the European route he went was perfect. And now, because he's been inactive, I think he doesn't need to be jumping into stupid fights. Lemos is had the fight on its own, but I think the time is perfect for that with Lemos's career. But and let Dalton do his own thing now. And then you catch him up at some point, and you get him at the right time, or you don't, or it's a fight where it's a bigger fight. I mean, at some point they could have boxed you at the British level.
Yeah, and European.
Which would have been fantastic for both of them. Too early for Adam again, but he had more. Being the younger guy, he could have come back quicker.
And they'd have got paid maybe 10% of what they could get down the line.
But as a boxing fan, we shouldn't care about.
No, but from their perspective, from their perspective, yeah.
But I do think now for his career, that they will stop mentioning you. Dalton won't talk about you now. He'll go, I don't care about you, especially the way he won and away from home. No, you'll just think he's like, this is like I'm your vacations now.
Yeah, it's one of the good. Azim, I spoke to him on I think it was the Monday or the Tuesday. They had a workout after the Dalton Smith win in America, and he was, he spoke very well about it and said, I've got to go and win a world title now. I've got to go and do it, and I'll make it into a big fight down the line, which is good, and it's probably the first time where, Dalton going over and doing something like that, they've been able to go, okay, yeah, well, I need to go and do something now as well, rather than it kind of being this sort of. It's been a bit of a dance, hasn't it, Andy?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think they're sensible. They understand how everything works. He's boxing out that McGuigan's gym. They know the game, and they know that, like you say, for the first time, Dalton Smith has taken a significant lead. And if you're on the other side of that fence, why would you fight Adam Azim? It's not because you don't think you're going to win or you're running. It's just that I'm here and you're here. Get to here, and we can do it. Absolutely, we can do it, and I hope you do get there. By the way, because I'm sure they should probably will be thinking that, because a domestic rivalry brings an interest, and therefore they would hope a money like nothing else. So it's in their interests for Azim to get to where they are, but at the minute he's not there, is he? It
has a lot of similarities. You mentioned McGuigan's gym of Frampton Quigg. Around that sort of that was ordered for the British title. I think for 30 grand they would have got 40 grand or something. They would have got and ended up in a multi-million pound unification bout between two of them. So
that's 10 years ago. That's this time of year. 10 years ago. That was end of February 2016, wasn't it?
Good times.
Wow.
Not for me.
But anyway, let's talk about the rest of the undercard very, very briefly, because we want to get on to some predictions, which we're always great at. Everyone remember those. First ones of the year, usually good ones. Undercard, we mentioned his name already, Nahir Albright against Frank Martin. Frank Martin, of course, held a version of the lightweight title now up at £140. Had a really, really good knockout in his last fight of Rancis Barthelemy. Starfished Rancis Barthelemy. Was obviously a good fighter in his own right. Bektemir Melikuziev against Sena Agbiko. At £168. Sena Agbiko, very, very tough, but it's a hard night's work for him, you would think. Looking forward to it. This is a bumper weekend of boxing, both in Nottingham and Las Vegas. We've got about, because we have to get everything transferred over before we're going to try about 7 minutes before we end up wrapping things up. We'll go with predictions. We'll save the any other business for another time. We've got plenty of shows coming up, thankfully. We're back. Woo. Anyway, predictions. Barry, going to come to...
cheering, just you.
Oh, no, yeah. I've got something to do now. You guys have got other jobs. But anyway, Barry, going to come to you first. Leigh Wood versus Josh Warrington 2. You already told us. We'll get you out of the way first.
Yeah. I think Warrington's going to get the win. I think he'll go points. And I don't think it'll be that tight. I think it's going to be danger attached in every round, but I think he'll get a decent enough lead like he did the first time, and I just think he'll maintain it. I think Woods just slipped a little bit. They both slipped a bit as well, so it could even it up again. But I just think he slipped enough to not be able to pull the trigger as quick. I think we saw that against Kakachi. His mind was saying go, and his body couldn't respond. And I think that's and understandably. I mean, the fights he's had and the career he's had has been brilliant, but I mean, it takes his toll. And I think with the Energizer Bunny style of Warrington, you can work more muscle memory than you can if you would. And so I think he'll win. Yeah.
Andy, we get a full list of predictions from you this week because he's not working on the cards.
Yeah, so I'm going to go Warrington as well, but I'm going to be quite specific, and what's going to happen is as follows, because I want a really good fight, because I do think a third fight would be good, so Warrington winning works in that regard. It's going to be a good fight. Warrington's going to get himself ahead, he's going to stay ahead, but towards the closing stages, Wood is going to get to him and he's going to knock him down late, maybe in the 10th or the 11th, and then it's going to be a rough old ride right up until the bell, and he's going to make it and hang on.
Nice.
And that is going to give us a thirst for a third fight.
There we go. So we love the specificity there. Yeah, brilliant. I'm going to go for Warrington as well. Lean towards Warrington. I actually picked him in the first fight, and it was looking great until it wasn't. But I do think Wood will always be dangerous in there. He does have that knack, doesn't he, of kind of like that Nottingham grit, I guess, that Carl Froch had as well, where he's just able to pull it out of the fire. But I think that even in defeat against Kakachi, Warrington still showed that he had, I know it was a couple of fights ago now, still plenty left, and I think he's going to be bang up for it as well. I think that first fight will really eat away at him. Warrington actually came into the studio on the Monday after we did the podcast. The fight was on the Saturday after the first Wood fight, and then he was in the studio on the Monday, and he couldn't, even then he was like dizzy, couldn't believe that he'd let things slip. And I think that this time, maybe quite similar to what you've said, Andy, I think Wood will have his moments and maybe drop Warrington. Not riding on the coattails of Andy's success, Andy's prediction.
Again, Warrington hurt Wood a few times.
Yeah, it's hurt him to the body a couple of times. Yeah, but yeah, I'm going to go for Warrington points in a good fight. Good fight. Okay, Barry, to you for Ishmael Davis versus Bilal Fawaz.
Yeah, I'm going to go for Davis on points as well. Sorry, everyone, once he knockouts. I think I think Fawaz is going to have enough awkwardness to get him through and toughness, I would say. But I think Davis just keeping his shape better, and I do think if he can just, like I said earlier, just add a little bit more speed to his work now and again, will just make it a bit more dynamic. And and they must have been working on something like that, I think, because you're always trying to improve. And I just think throughout that, it'll take a while, but as the rounds go on, I think he'll win quite wide in a fight that he's having to work for. But I do think the experience of boxing at a higher level, at those 12 rounds, is going to be paramount, I think, as the fight goes into the sort of last quarter.
Andy?
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm exactly the same, because we talked about how big this is for Fawaz, but for Davis having won those titles, it's huge for him to keep them, and there's no way that's going to be lost on him. And the fact is that he has banked that experience against Kelly, against Bohachuk, against Agyarko, and I think that will play a big part. And I think, points, fairly clear.
I'm going to go for Bilal Fawaz.
Oh, hello.
First disagreement of the new year. But yeah, I'm going to go for Bilal Fawaz. I think what you said earlier, Barry, the energy of him, he's awkward. He can be busy as well. He can let his hands go. And I do agree with what you said about Ishmael Davis as well, being at sometimes, it's more like, rather than one pace, it's more rhythm. Like he gets into sort of a rhythm of...
You say one pace, it sounds like the slow.
Yeah, the rhythm.
It's reasonable, isn't it?
And I think it'll be close. And I think that Fawaz will nick it. I like that. Fawaz close. Like really looking forward to the fight.
It's good scrapping it, actually.
I think all of the fights that we're talking about this weekend could all, in one way or another, go either way, really. I'm going to go for Fawaz. I just think that he's just might be the fresher guy as well, despite being I think he's the older man. Like he's been around for certainly longer. Obviously, not had the opportunities.
Yeah, went to school with me.
But I think that little bit of crazy in him, I think might be enough to get it done. So I'm going to go for Bilal Fawaz. Okay. Right, over to Las Vegas. We're going to come this way around to Mr. Andy Clarke. First, start off with the main event, Mario Barrios against Ryan Garcia.
Okay, so I'm going quite bold with this one.
Okay.
Although I've said that Garcia is a favourite heading in, and I stick to that, I'm going to pick Barrios. And again, I'm going to be specific. And what is going to happen here is that Garcia is not quite going to be there on his game. We saw what happened against Romero. It's not going to happen for him. He's going to get frustrated, and he's not going to make it through to the end.
Nice.
It's so much better when he's not working on the fights.
We
get this specific rather than, it'll be a good fight.
He's going to get a bit demoralised. He's going to lose the will a bit, and he's going to stay on his stool.
Nice.
Barry?
Yeah, I don't see that.
Yeah, interesting.
I don't see that. I'm going to go for Garcia with the stoppage, actually. I just think that he won't get frustrated, because I don't think there's going to be nothing that massively fears it, the fear factor there. He's not going to have a guy who's going to massively punch hard. I think Barrios is not going to really take a risk to try and make an impression early. He's going to box sensible, like he should do. And that's why it won't be the same as Romeo, because Rowley has a bit more pace and has more power and a bit more adventurous in what he does, where I think Barrios will be more painted by numbers and do everything correct. But I think the speed, I think he's going to struggle with the speed and with that the power. So at some point, I don't think it's going to be a massively great fight for a while, because Garcia is going to be jumping out of distance all the time, making Barrios fall short, or have to reset and try and go again. He'll just keep creating distance, and then he'll throw some shots and he'll miss. But at some point, one of those shots won't miss. And then when he catches him, I think he'll start to unravel. I think.
Stoppage early, middle,
I think it's going
late.
to be around mid rounds, I would say. I think a while he'll be quite tentative, no one will make a mistake. And Barrios will be, because Barrios is a good boxer and he's a world-class fighter, though no one gives you credit for that. We'll be aware of the traps that Garcia is trying to, and the speed, and all things he can make a mistake. And with that, he'll be probably a little bit over-tentative. But that at some point will allow Garcia to slide closer, so when he does accelerate, he's close enough for you not to see it, I think.
Okay.
Mine happening relies on Garcia not being where he needs to be physically and mentally, but I think there's a good chance of that.
Yeah, I
of
think
course.
there always is. When it comes to Ryan Garcia, there always is. I'm quite specific in mine as well. I'm going to go, and they're all, I think this kind of shows you where everybody is with Ryan Garcia, that they're all quite different predictions. Yeah. I'm going to go for Ryan Garcia by controversial decision. I think Barrios is going to stay on the outside. I think we saw with Garcia, he struggled when Haney, even like after 4 or 5 rounds, he was tired, Garcia, and he was kind of stalking Haney and following him around the ring and wasn't able to get off. I think that Garcia will have his moments, and I think Barrios will kind of have his own moments in stifling him. And I think when all is said and done, I think it will be a fight that really doesn't catch fire, and Garcia will get a decision. And yeah, some people will be up in arms about it, and others will be Ryan Garcia fans. So yeah, I'm going to go for Ryan Garcia by controversial decision win.
Nice.
Got some different ones there.
Yeah. I mean, again, this kind of shows you where people think Ryan Garcia is. He could come out and knock him out in the first round, or he could quit on his stool after 6 or 7. Let's see what happens. Andy, going to come to you first again. Gary Antuanne Russell against Andy Hiraoka.
I'm going to go for Russell based on not a great deal, to be honest.
So he's got very specific to.
Yeah.
Okay, like it. Good.
That one.
Decision?
That one over there.
Yeah, points.
Okay,
Yeah.
points. Barry?
I go the other way. On points, Hiraoka. I just think I do think Russell might be the stronger, possibly, though there's no basis based on that. He just looks stronger. But
Physically.
yeah.
Very physical.
And I think he'll probably be the more direct puncher of the two. But Hiraoka does get good angles on his work, and he is hittable. He's going to get hit enough times to give Russell an opportunity to maybe get a stoppage. But I do think that he jumps out of distance now and again. I think that's going to be the difference. Just that break in the exchanges, that he can come back with shots. And I think he'll just be busier in a really good fight. I mean, there's plenty of damage there between them two. No one comes out unscathed. I mean, there's battle scars for the rest of your life. I think it's going to be a real war and a great fight to watch. But endurance is going to play a factor there. And then when you mention endurance, with a name like Hiraoka, I think you're going to fancy him for the win, aren't you?
So you've got him on, not much his name. No, I'm joking. Yeah, I'm going to go for Hiraoka as well. I think Hiraoka can. I think he can hurt Gary Antuanne Russell. Gary Antuanne Russell's been hurt a few times. So Francis Barthelemy, who can punch, certainly a good fighter in his own right, certainly in his own time. But I think Hiraoka will win a decision. But I think Hiraoka will have his moments where he looks like he's hurting Russell. I like Russell, but I think again, we mentioned it earlier, he's not his brother. He's not slick. He's physical and he's athletic, and I think if he can physically overwhelm you with the speed, with the athleticism, then he can get on top. But I think Hiraoka will just have a little bit too much for him, and I think Hiraoka wins the decision.
And that keeps Russell in the fight from not getting stopped, in my opinion. That athleticism, that he'll throw something.
Yeah.
When he gets caught with a hard shot, he might just throw enough or move close enough just to get him out of trouble, just enough. But yeah, it's a good fight, really good fight.
And finally, before we wrap things up, Barry, going to come to you first for this one. Richardson Hitchins against Oscar Duarte.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Hitchins. I mean, it's a tricky fight for him. Just showing that the guys who really put pressure on him, intelligent pressure, he struggles with. If he gets it's all based on there's a caveat. If he has a better jab, he needs a stronger jab, and if he uses that, then I think he can frustrate Duarte enough to nick a points decision. But it's going to be a hard night for him. And it might even be very much one of those where he wins the fight and he gets it, and he does generally win it, but people at home are going to think Duarte's been robbed because he's going to be the one pushing the pace all the time, and they might see it that way. But I think if Duarte has a lot of success early, like can just dent a bit of confidence in Hitchins, then I think he can steamroll him and maybe stop him. But I'm going to go with Hitchins on points, tight.
Andy, specific or vibes?
No, I'm going with.
Well,
I think this is a vibe-based podcast, isn't it? I mean, come on.
Very much.
I'm going to go Hitchins on points, and I think he's going to produce a good performance. I think he's going to produce a good performance and cope with Duarte, have the answers, and I think he can win quite clearly.
I think it's going to be a very interesting fight. And I'm curious to see how Duarte does. We haven't mentioned it, the IBF rehydration, because he's a big boy, 140 pounds. And Hitchins, by his own admission, kind of didn't really do it the best in the past, but he's a bit more used to it now, a bit more acclimatized to it. Having said that, Oscar Duarte is trained by Robert Garcia, who's just had Raymond retire with the IBF rehydration against Andy Cruz as well. Obviously different fighters and different circumstances and yada, yada, yada. So whether or not that kind of helps him in some capacity. But I do like Duarte in the fight. I feel like I thought Lemos beat Hitchins, and I thought he hurt Hitchins multiple times in that fight. And I think Duarte is a heavier puncher. I think Lemos is probably a more well-rounded fighter and more intelligent at closing the distance. But I think Duarte hits harder. And I like the way that Duarte has been matched. He's been matched well. He's heavy-handed. And I'm just going to go for him just on eye-catching, heavy punches. I think if he works the body well, because Hitchins doesn't like to fight in close. He likes to hold you. If Duarte doesn't accept the clinch, bangs the body. And Hitchins also very upright in the clinch as well. Stands upright. Lemos nailed him a few times the overhand right, and Duarte throws a big overhand right.
So I think that if you're learning off your fights...
Yeah, and this is a mistake I've made in the past. I've picked on it based on the fact, well, he struggled in that and he does that, so he's going to lose, rather than the way you're going, where he struggled there, but he's learnt from it and he's going to come out that way.
You learn that it exposes you. It's what sometimes it can be two of those things actually at the same time. But you have learned a bit more, but you're still exposed. But yeah, it just makes it. That's what makes it a brilliant card. Yeah, a whole brilliant weekend actually, because there's no nailed on winner. Is
None of those fights, any of us were like, that's how
we haven't done it. Even Frank Martin, Albright. I do fancy Frank Martin, but Albright with those long levers, the way he throws, he's a really hard fighter to read. That could be an upset.
Yeah.
Good night. Can't wait to get to Vegas. I'm driving to Nottingham. I live Nottingham.
Yeah, there we go. Right, okay, that is all we have time for today on episode 2 of the Betfred Boxing Show with me, your host, Rob Tebbutt. Join us next week on Monday as we review what will surely be an action-packed weekend of boxing. But for now, from Mr. Andy Clarke and from Mr. Barry Jones and myself, thanks very much for stopping by, and we'll see you next week.